glad you liked it. Are you planning to deliver this speech somewhere or just looking for motivation? Let me know if you want any tweaks or if you need it in a different style. What if I told you that the part of yourself you've been running from, the anger, the fear, the insecurities, is actually the key to unlocking your full potential? Most people spend their entire lives trying to hide or suppress their dark side, believing it to be a weakness. But the truth? Your dark side is not your enemy, it's your superpower. The misunderstood power of darkness society has conditioned us to believe that emotions like anger, jealousy, doubt, or even obsession are negative. We're told to stay positive and think happy thoughts. But let's be real, life doesn't always work that way. You're not always going to wake up feeling motivated. You're not always going to have people cheering you on. And you're definitely not always going to feel like everything is going right. But that's exactly why your dark side is so powerful. It's raw, untamed energy. It's the part of you that refuses to settle. It's the fire inside that says, I want more, I deserve more. If you learn how to harness it, that energy can push you further than any amount of artificial positivity ever could. How the darkest minds create the brightest futures. Think about some of the most legendary figures in history. They weren't just driven by happiness. They were often fueled by struggle, anger, or even obsession. Athletes train relentlessly because they hate losing. Entrepreneurs grind for years because they refuse to be broke. Artists pour their pain into their work, creating masterpieces that move the world. That's because their dark side gave them an edge. It made them relentless. It made them hungry. It made them unstoppable. Channeling the darkness. The problem isn't having a dark side, it's what you do with it. If you let it consume you, it can destroy you. But if you learn to control it, you become a force of nature. Imagine taking every ounce of your anger, your frustration, your self-doubt, and instead of letting it paralyze you, you turn it into fuel. When someone doubts you, use it to prove them wrong. When you feel insecure, use it to become the best version of yourself. When you feel like the world is against you, let that be the reason you refuse to quit. The dark side is not about being reckless or destructive. It's about using the most intense parts of yourself as fuel for something greater. The hidden strength in pain, every painful moment you've experienced, every rejection, every failure, every time you felt like you weren't enough, has the potential to either break you or build you. Most people let pain crush them, but the strongest people, they take that pain and turn it into power. Instead of seeing failure as proof that you'll never succeed, see it as feedback. Proof that you're trying, proof that you're learning, proof that you're leveling up. Instead of seeing fear as a reason to quit, see it as a signal that you're about to do something meaningful. Pain isn't there to stop you, it's there to shape you. Obsess, adapt, dominate. One of the biggest lies you've been told is that obsession is a bad thing, that wanting something too much makes you too intense. But let's be real. Every person who has achieved greatness was obsessive. They didn't kind of want it. They weren't balanced. They lived and breathed their goals. The difference between average and extraordinary isn't talent. It's how far you're willing to go, how much discomfort you're willing to endure, how deep you're willing to dive into the parts of yourself that most people ignore. The people who truly succeed aren't the ones who avoid their dark side, they're the ones who master it. We live in a world that constantly tells us to stay positive and look on the bright side. When you're struggling, people say things like, just don't think about it, or everything happens for a reason. But let's be real, that's not how life works. You can't just ignore your problems and hope they disappear. You can't pretend your fears, insecurities, or failures don't exist. Because here's the truth. What you refuse to face will always control you. Most people spend their lives running from the things they don't want to deal with. They distract themselves with social media, entertainment, work, or even relationships, anything to avoid sitting with their own thoughts. But ignoring your problems doesn't make them go away. It just gives them more power over you. You don't overcome fear by pretending it's not there. You don't fix insecurities by burying them under fake confidence. You don't get rid of self-doubt by acting like you have it all figured out. If you want real change, you have to do something most people are too scared to do. You have to face yourself. Why running from your darkness makes it stronger? Imagine you're trapped in a house with a monster. You know it's there, lurking in the shadows, waiting. Instead of facing it, you keep running from room to room, locking doors behind you, hoping it'll go away. But every time you stop, you hear it breathing. You feel its presence. It's still there, waiting. That's exactly how fear, trauma, and self-doubt work. The more you avoid them, the bigger and scarier they get. You might be able to distract yourself for a while, but eventually they catch up, and when they do, they hit harder than ever. The only way to truly get rid of the monster is to stop running, turn around, and face it head on. Fake positivity versus real growth. We've all seen it. The fake smiles, the forced "I'm fine," the people who act like they have their life together when deep down they're falling apart. Social media makes it even worse. Everyone posts their best moments, their highlights, their wins. No one shows their failures, their struggles, or their real emotions. And that creates a toxic cycle. You start thinking, why does everyone else have it together except me? You feel like something is wrong with you for having doubts, fears, or struggles. So what do? You start faking it too. You put on a mask. You pretend. But pretending doesn't heal you. Faking confidence doesn't create real self-worth. Ignoring your pain doesn't make it go away. Real growth starts when you stop running, when you stop pretending, when you admit to yourself, I'm struggling with this. I don't have all the answers. I need to deal with this. That level of honesty is terrifying, but it's also the only way forward. The power of looking in the mirror. Sit with yourself, not the version you show the world, the real you, the one with doubts, fears, regrets, and struggles, the one you don't talk about. Ask yourself the hard questions. What am I afraid of? What am I avoiding? What pain have I been suppressing? What lies have I been telling myself? And when the answers come, don't look away. Because here's the secret most people never learn. The moment you stop running, the moment you truly face your demons, they start losing power over you. Fear thrives in the unknown, insecurity grows in the shadows. But once you bring them into the light, you realize they were never as big as they seemed. The hard truth about change. This isn't about being reckless or self-destructive. It's not about drowning in negativity or getting stuck in the past. It's about taking full control of your life. It's about saying, I'm not hiding from this anymore. I'm going to deal with it, learn from it, and use it to grow. Most people never do this because it's uncomfortable, it's messy, it forces you to confront the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But that's exactly why it's so powerful. Pain, it's something we all experience. It comes in different forms. Failure, heartbreak, rejection, betrayal, loss, self-doubt. Some people let it define them, keep them stuck, or even destroy them. But what if I told you that pain isn't just something to endure? It's something you can use. Pain is energy, and energy doesn't just disappear. It either controls you or you control it. The people who achieve greatness, who rise above, who refuse to be broken, they're not the ones who avoided pain. They're the ones who turned it into power. Pain is the greatest teacher. There's a reason we remember painful moments more vividly than happy ones. Pain leaves a mark. It changes us. But the question is, are you letting it change you for the better or for the worse? Think about a time you got hurt, emotionally, mentally, or physically. Maybe someone doubted you. Maybe you failed at something you really cared about. Maybe life hit you so hard you didn't know if you'd ever recover. Most people react in one of two ways. They let pain break them. They give up. They decide, maybe I'm not good enough. They let fear take over. They let pain build them. They take the hit, feel it, and then use it as fuel to come back stronger. The difference between these two people isn't that one experiences more pain than the other. It's how they respond to it. Pain fuels greatness. Every champion, every success story, every person who's ever achieved something incredible, they all have one thing in common. They've been through pain. The athlete who trains harder than anyone else, they remember the time they lost, the time they were told they weren't good enough. The entrepreneur who refuses to quit, they remember when they were broke, laughed at, doubted. The artist who creates something unforgettable, they felt heartbreak, loneliness, struggle, and they poured it into their work. Pain creates depth. It gives you an edge. It teaches you resilience, discipline, and hunger. It forces you to grow in ways comfort never could. Comfort never changed anyone. But pain has created legends. Pain is proof that you're alive. Most people fear pain. They think it's something to avoid at all costs. But have you ever considered that pain might be the very thing that makes life meaningful? Think about it. The best moments in life, if you never experienced failure, success wouldn't feel like a victory. If you never experienced failure, success wouldn't feel as deep. Winning after years of struggle, proving people wrong, experiencing events, victory, failure, 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 failure. If you never experienced victory, if you never struggled, you wouldn't appreciate the times when everything finally falls into place. Pain is the contrast that makes success, joy, and fulfillment actually matter. Channeling pain into something greater. It's not enough to just go through pain, you have to do something with it. Ask yourself, what has hurt me the most? How can I use that as motivation instead of a setback? What lesson is this pain trying to teach me? The people who truly transform their lives are the ones who look pain in the face and say, you're not going to break me, you're going to make me unstoppable. So next time you feel pain, don't run from it, use it. Let it make you sharper, stronger, and more relentless than ever before. Everything you believe about yourself, everything you think is just the way you are is a story. A story you've been told. A story you've repeated so many times that you started to believe it. Maybe you've told yourself, I'm just not smart enough. Maybe you've heard, people like me don't succeed. Maybe life knocked you down and you thought, this is just how it's always going to be. Your story isn't set in stone. It's a script you can rewrite at any time. The question is, are you going to keep telling the same story, or are you going to write a new one? The lies we believe from the moment we're born, we're surrounded by narratives about who we are, what we're capable of, and what our future should look like. Some of these stories come from family, some from society, and some from our own experiences. But just because you've believed something for a long time doesn't make it true. If you've failed in the past, that doesn't mean you're a failure. If you've been rejected, that doesn't mean you're unworthy. If life has been unfair, that doesn't mean you're doomed to struggle forever. The only thing that determines your future is what you do next. But most people never rewrite their story because they don't even realize they're trapped in one. Recognizing the old story, ask yourself, what beliefs have I accepted about myself that might not be true? What excuses do I make for why I can't change? What truths about my life have I never actually questioned? If you say things like, I'm just not a lucky person, I've never been good at that, this is just the way things are for me, that's your old story talking. The first step to rewriting your story is recognizing that you are not bound by your past. Breaking free from your past, one of the biggest traps people fall into is thinking that the past defines them. Who told you that because you grew up struggling, you'll always struggle? Who told you that because you grew up struggling, you'll always struggle? And that has to do with the height of your pedestal. We believe your potential. Are you listening to me? You told you that because you grew up struggling, you'll always struggle. Who told you that because you weren't good at something in the past, you can never be great at it? You did. And just as easily as you convince yourself of those things, you can convince yourself of something new. The power of a new story. The most successful people in the world didn't get there because they were destined for it. They got there because they refused to accept the story they were given. The athlete who was told they were too small, they trained harder than anyone else. The entrepreneur who was told they'd never make it, they worked until they proved everyone wrong. The person who was doubted, rejected, overlooked, they decided that their story wasn't over yet. You don't need permission to change your life. You just need to decide that your past is just a chapter, not the whole book. The rewrite begins now. If your life was a movie, where would you want the story to go next? What kind of person would you want to become? What would the hero version of you do right now? Because here's the thing, you're already the author. You always have been. The pen is in your hands. The only question is, what story will you write next?